Hi everyone, I'm Haley Santel if we're meeting for the first time, and I'm an artist, a painter, a poet, a writer, and previously an ethical fashion designer, a self-published author. And here on my channel I want to talk about how to manifest your dreams as an artist, how to heal through art, and how to do this in a way that is financially sound. I had an ethical fashion business for the past 10 years called Maddie Apparel, and then we rebranded to Slow Motion Goods. I closed the shop though, and in the brand in general this summer, after just a crazy year of events, starting with a miscarriage in the spring, followed by the doctors finding a huge 6-inch cyst on my ovaries that was potentially cancerous. I had my left ovary removed, moved out of my house, closed my ethical fashion shop of 10 years, really fought for my marriage, and ultimately fought for myself. So throughout this whole process, closing my store and all of these changes that all happened this year, I found a lot of healing through art, which was my kind of original passion, original gift. That's what I went to college for. One of my degrees was painting, studied at Florence University of the Arts twice, and my grandma was a professional China painter. My mom's an artist, so I've been painting my whole life. And it's interesting how crazy life experiences can kind of bring you back to your greatest passions. And after 10 years in the fashion world, which I was still a creative, still an artist, and I was, although it was in the light of designing fashion, I, on the side as well, would make gifts for my friends and family members over the years, commission projects, and I never really lost my passion. But it wasn't until this summer when I closed my shop that I really dove back into art in a really big way. So I have some really, really exciting news. And if the title doesn't give it away, how to land a dreamy hotel artist residency, then I'm going to tell you right now the specifics. But ultimately what I want you to get out of this video is to go after a dream, whatever that is for you, as well, and to not let boundaries stop you in any way. And I hope that my life and the obstacles that I've gone through are a testament to how you can do the same. So my exciting news, again, hence the title, is in the beginning of 2025, I will be hosted by Hotel Kansas City, this beautiful hotel, historic hotel in Kansas City where I live, that has been beautifully renovated, and it has a long history. Actually, my parents had their wedding reception there 40 plus years ago, and the hotel just has such stunning classic decor. It's in downtown Kansas City, and it is, I can't even tell you how beautiful, how dreamy this hotel is. So the hotel is going to host me as their very first artist in residence, and I just want to talk to you about how that even came about and how to potentially go after something like this on your own if it's something that you're interested in. So the details of this residency, before I start on how this happened, in January 2025, I will be painting live in the lobby, working on the last couple of paintings for my new upcoming collection that will be on display in February, called Flying in the Dark. You'll have to look through other videos for behind the scenes, and also I'll be posting one soon on really the real background of this collection and why I launched it. But Flying in the Dark really started when after my surgery, removing my left ovary this summer, I was in really a low place. I definitely couldn't drive, couldn't work, I could barely walk. And so my mom would come over and help me walk my dog, my red Doberman. And I needed to get a little exercise, but I wasn't able to hold anything. So she'd come or walk my dog, and we'd walk slowly around the neighborhood. Anyways, we came back from a walk about 2 weeks after my surgery, and sitting to the left of my front door was a little bat hanging by one foot. And there was so much noise, my dog barking, cars honking, that kind of thing, but the bat stayed for hours and hours during the day, even through the night, did not fly off even at dusk. And it made me really think about, why is this bat here? If it flew off really quickly, I probably wouldn't have had time to think about it, but because it kept staying, I felt like it was there to bring me a message. Anyways, looking up the meaning of the bat, it symbolizes death in many cultures, but also rebirth, and the ability to fly at night and avoid obstacles. So my new collection, Flying in the Dark, is one of healing, one of rebirth. Through this collection, you'll go from happy times, sad times, scary times, bringing me all the way through my miscarriage, my surgery to remove my ovary and the cyst, all the way through happiness and growth and personal realization. And that all revolves around the bat, which in Hebrew means a talif, and that implies flying in the dark. So that's where that collection came from. I will be painting the last few paintings, like I mentioned, of this collection in the lobby of Hotel Kansas City on Thursdays and Fridays and some Saturdays in the month of January. So if you're a local to Kansas City or flying through, please come have a coffee with me, hang out while I'm painting live. And then in February, on February 1st, will be the opening night of my new exhibition of Flying in the Dark, which will be a collection of poetry accompanied by these paintings, multidisciplinary, different media, watercolor, oil, ink, poetry, acrylic, so even 24 karat gold. There are all kinds of things in my paintings. And starting February 1st, they'll be on display, and then all through the month of February, these paintings will be for sale and on display in the lobby of Hotel Kansas City. So I hope you'll come out if you live locally in Kansas City. And to tell you more about how this happened and kind of walk you through, maybe this is something that you could go after if it's interesting to you, or something similar. I just want to encourage you to go after your dreams and not let anything stop you. I think I had been manifesting this when I look back for years, to be honest. I had been an ethical fashion designer, like I said, for 10 years, which kept me extremely preoccupied. I hardly had time to come up for air, wasn't making much of an income, although I paid all of my team members, cut and sew team, a living wage. We and used ethical fabrics. We donated a pair of underwear for every item sold. This kind of kept our margins thin. And so I just felt like I was always grinding it out. And I would paint on the side just for fun, but I didn't have much time to myself really, or to work on my career in painting. And so I kind of let art go to the side for a while as I was focusing on my ethical fashion line and growing that as it was a startup. So I was on a donation drop-off trip, which is what we call when we receive requests from organizations all over the world requesting new underwear, because it is the #1 most needed, most under-donated item of clothing. We'd receive these requests and we would do our best to add them to our waiting list and fulfill them when we could. So we'd pick a different partner every quarter. And this particular year, a few years ago, our partnership was in LA at Genesee Center, which is a domestic violence shelter supported by Halle Berry, a bunch of other locals in LA and people all over the world. This was our second time donating to them. The first time was about 10 years ago. So we were in LA, my husband was with me, and we were staying at this really cool hotel called The Line. And The Line had a video that would play in the room and talking about the different culture events and programming that that hotel offered. And this particular hotel had an artist residency, which I don't feel like I'd ever really heard of before, but you know, when you start to become interested in something, it feels like right and left you're hearing, you're finding more information about this particular topic. And it like peaks, when something piques your interest, then it just becomes louder and louder. So it's possible that I'd heard of artist residencies before, but because I was so into fashion over the years, I wasn't in the art world and didn't know much about it. So I was very interested. What is this artist residency? In the video that they played in the room, on a loop, the artist was interviewed by the hotel talking about why they were picked as a resident and what they were doing in this partnership. So they had this particular artist was designing a key card to be able to get into the hotel rooms, but it wasn't just the design of the card. It was about the background to that and the thought behind access in general. And so there was more to the story, and it became this cultural message. The hotel was kind of stepping outside the box and not just being a hotel at that point, but adding an extra layer of arts and culture to what they were doing at the hotel and kind of bringing people together. I looked up other artist residencies that hotel had hosted over the years and were going to in the future, and they would have artists who would host, workshops in the lobby and put their art on display for sale. And they would just have different opportunities for the artists to take part in with the hotel's clients, and then other locals who lived in the city who wanted to come out and take part in whatever the artist was offering. So I just felt like that was so cool. I was thinking, oh my gosh, so these artists, I don't think they were local. The guy was from the Bronx, who was on the loop in the hotel. There was another artist from Jamaica. And so this hotel was hosting these various artists from all over the US and world, it seemed, for these residencies. And I thought, man, that is so cool. I love to travel, love staying in hotels. And the first thing I thought was, I want to do that. I want to display my art in a different kind of way. I have never displayed my art in a gallery, and I likely will in the future. I hope that would be fun, but I don't feel like I'm much of a traditional artist. Because maybe I'm getting a late start, I've done art my whole life. I just don't feel like I fit in the category of an artist that, always displays their work in galleries or does things maybe the traditional artist way. I sort of feel like I'm self-taught, just like I was with my ethical fashion career. And I've always wanted to be kind of different and step outside the box and just do things that feel authentic to me and to my interests. And so it felt like for my first collection, I wanted to work with a hotel instead of a gallery. So long story short, this inspiration sparked at that hotel, The Line in LA, and it really just kept, spiraling from there. I started aggressively, I would say, researching other hotels who've done residencies. And I honestly started kind of generally reaching out or just making a list of all these different residencies all over the US and world that I might be able to reach out to and apply for, because there are many hotels and programs, in France and Italy and all over the US that host artists in a very specific form and timeline. So they'll say, we have an open application in January for our summer residency, that kind of thing. So it's very structured. However, I felt like I wanted to find a hotel who maybe hadn't hosted a artist residency in the way that I was wanting to go about it. And I was actually thought for my first collection of paintings that I was working on, I wanted to look for a local hotel in my city. And so what started as being inspired by the Line Hotel and various residencies all over the world that I felt like in the future I would love to partner with, instead turned into, okay, instead of just a traditional residency, I want to look for a hotel that might host me to be able to display my collection and do other host other workshops and programs and like really collaborate together. I felt like finding one in my city, Kansas City, would be really cool as well, because since I'm kind of new in the art world, I felt like it would be nice to form community in a way that wasn't just through like my ethical fashion shop that I had closed. I'm just so used to finding community. Right now I'm in my home studio, and when I paint these days, it's kind of, I'm here, and I wanted to find a way where in my city I could interact with people who are staying at the hotel or locals that could come out and support, and that just feels a little bit more like me. My collection specifically, I felt like it would be better for a hotel as opposed to a traditional gallery, only because I envisioned this idea of having it being really interactive, using sound and poetry and the paintings where it could be a little bit guided, like I kind of explain in a way the way that they should interact with the exhibition, but also a little bit self-guided, so that, let's say, hotel guests wanted to, this was kind of part of their entertainment when they come to stay, they could walk through this exhibition on their own, and it could be pretty self-guided. A gallery, the same thing happens. However, I just felt like a hotel, it would do it in a little bit of a different way. And I can't explain really why I felt that way. I think it's just because I love staying in hotels, and even staycations in my own city, but also in another city. I felt like, man, I would love that if there was an art exhibition, and also maybe the artist occasionally was hosting workshops or events and things like that. That's something I would love to go to for entertainment. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I approached this hotel and how this happened for me, and kind of give steps on maybe how you might be able to go about this on your own. So, number one, manifest your dreams in your head or on paper, however you want to do it, or maybe it's a combination, which is what I did. Anytime something really big and exciting happens for me and unfolds, it has always started first with some kind of dream, some kind of goal, and or some kind of vision in my head. If you've ever done your human design, just kind of like a horoscope in a way, but way cooler, I highly suggest it. If you haven't done it before, get the Human Design app. My human design is manifester, and I've always been someone who's like a visionary. I like to come up with big dreams and ideas, hence why I started my company, Maddie Apparel, 10 years ago as a startup, all because I found out about how underwear was the most needed and under-donated item of clothing. It feels like I just always have these big ideas, and sometimes I don't have the energy to, I always have the energy to get them done, but to not keep them going like in grind mode for many years. So I think it's interesting to think about what your gifts are and to really lean into those and let that be a natural progression or way for you to take one step forward. For me, I have to manifest things and ideas, and that actually just gives me motivation throughout my days. I feel like we have to have goals, otherwise sort of what's the point of life? If we're just aimlessly going in no direction, that's where we will go, in no direction. And so for me, it's fun and it's exciting to manifest things that I want. And so I think just going back a few years ago, I was naturally doing this without really knowing. And I think that's when you really know you're going in the right direction, especially when doors are opening. So, number one, I would say manifest your dreams. For me, that looks like in my head, as I'm driving on a road trip for a couple hours, driving to work, or maybe sitting on the couch with light music or no TV on. Maybe on a nice day, I'm sitting on the porch or in my backyard and I'm sitting under nature's elements and just letting kind of my brain work and dumping out into the atmosphere things that I naturally feel like are things that I want in the future. I also like to use a journal and I dump those thoughts down on paper. And for me, that's really fun to look back on in a year or two. What were my dreams 2 years ago? Did they come true? Did they turn out differently? Where was I headed? And for me, it's fun to kind of track those things and see how I pivoted or what actually worked out. But again, if you manifest your dreams, writing them down really helps you take action, for me at least. So I highly suggest this. Number two, plan out that goal or manifestation. So it's one thing to dream it up and to put it on paper, but then we have to take steps toward that. It's not just going to happen out of thin air. Yes, we can manifest it. Yes, we can kind of put it out there and say, hey, God, hey, universe, this is what I want. This is what I feel like is for me. But we too have to do our part and not just manifest it, but take a step toward that goal. So when you plan out the goal, again, you could do so in your head. Kind of, for me, I like to take a couple hours of time where it's interrupted by other people and make space for myself and just think through things in my head. How would that work? What would I do next? And then I also like to write it down. I like to write down actionable steps and anything that I can just dump my brain. Take a notebook that maybe you have the same notebook and you write down each of your goals, and then you refer back to them. And maybe that's steps that you can do, one step a week, one step a month, any baby step. I highly recommend take one step at a time. For me, for a hotel residency, that looked like writing down all the current residencies that are in different cities or at different hotels or at different museums or anything like that across the country and the world that I know of are existing residencies. I also wrote down dates for when new artists can apply for those residencies and when those residencies happen. And then I started to just write down, okay, let's say there's not a program at this hotel, but I would love to approach them about a residency. Sometimes we have to take our goals in our own hands, and even if something does not look like there's already a path laid, we have the opportunity to lay that path and to, if you see a vision and you see a connection, then it does not, there's no harm in trying to form a partnership with a hotel or a gallery or anywhere that you might want to have some kind of partnership or exhibit your work or teach a workshop, that kind of thing. So I'm going to talk more about that with this specific residency and how I landed it. But on to step number 3 with how to land a dreamy hotel artist residency is take action and put yourself out there. So this is similar to the last step, but writing down those steps, planning out that goal is one thing, but then you actually have to do that. You have to take those steps. So you can write them down, you can plan out the steps, but then you have to actually call, email, go in person. You make the plan and then you do it. So now I'm on to the part where I talk about how I landed this artist in residency at this Dreamy hotel. And hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense for how you could go after something like this. As I mentioned, I didn't really want to work with a gallery. I knew I wanted to exhibit my work, but I wanted it to be at a hotel. And I'd kind of taken some steps reaching out to an architect of one local hotel who knew the curator, and we talked about how we wanted that to be a more of a natural introduction. So I didn't get too far with that, but this was a hotel in Kansas City that regularly displays artists' work and regularly has exhibitions. And kind of what I gathered from that architect and the contact that I knew from that hotel was that their programming goes 2 years in advance. And although I would say many galleries are similar, where they will partner with an artist and agree to display their work in an exhibition maybe in 1 or 2 years, my situation felt a little bit different. And again, this is why you have to listen to not the traditional path necessarily if you don't want to, but to forge your own path and what makes most sense, what is most authentic to you as an artist and to as a person, not just an artist. For me, my specific collection that I'm working on, Flying in the Dark, all was because of this whole summer of kind of traumatic events that happened to me that I ultimately healed through. And my collection has to do with listening to kind of the themes of nature, symbols of the night. So like the moon, the bat, the possum, the wind, and storms, the trees, the sun, things like that. And these letting these symbols of nature speak to me. And I had all the time in the world as I was healing to really listen to what they were saying to me. And because of that, they gave me messages. And so that's what my collection is about, Flying in the Dark. And I just kind of felt like because of that, I had a specific path that I wanted to go. And I didn't want to wait 2 years to display this collection because I'm wrapped up in the feelings of it now. And for me, art is emotion. You know, it's taking my direct experiences and putting that emotion on a canvas or in a poem and kind of spewing it out. And to me, it just felt like it would be less authentic if I waited. It's one of those things where I feel like I'm in the moment right now. To me, that's the most authentic way that I can be an artist or display my work as an artist, is to show that I'm in this season now. So I was really looking for a hotel who would host me as a resident sooner than later. It didn't have to be like tomorrow, because when I started reaching out to a hotel, I had barely started this collection, but I knew I wanted it to be in the winter because Flying in the Dark really symbolizes the night and how we too can avoid obstacles flying in the dark. That's kind of my slogan or statement for this collection. And I knew I wanted it to be kind of in like the dead of winter, when people who will view the collection, I hope, are already in this season of darkness in a way. So some who come to my exhibition may feel like they're going through a season of darkness because of, loss, or because of depression or anxiety or whatever that is. And then others might come to the exhibition having a great current life experience, full of positivity, but they're in winter. And in Kansas City, it's not one of the coldest cities. It's not like up north, but we get snow, we get darkness, we get shorter days, just like many US cities. And so it's that winter, a little bit of that winter depression, just darker days. And I think some people might be coming to my exhibition feeling the weight of that as well, the coldness, the darkness, and just craving something that's healing or refreshing or empowering. And that's what I want my work to exhibit, to show. Maybe there's darkness in my paintings and harshness and a lot of emotions, but I also want people to see an equal amount of light, that you can always find light at night in the darkness. And so I knew that I wanted to have this collection during the winter. So I started reaching out to that hotel that I mentioned, where I had a contact that regularly hosts artists. I think I reached out to them maybe in August or so, 2024. That was a couple months ago, and I was envisioning, hoping that they would have an opening to display my art maybe in January, February, that kind of thing. That felt to me like authentic, because I'd still be in this emotion of this season of my life, but it would give me quite a few months to be able to actually make the work in time to display it. So I drove past this hotel called Hotel Kansas City around that time, and something just like went off in my head. I was thinking, oh my gosh, why did I not think of them really first? And I hadn't reached out to any of the other hotels. I actually hadn't even presented this idea to that first hotel. I had just kind of talked about with some contacts that I know that might know someone there. So we didn't really get anywhere even. And so Hotel Kansas City came on my radar, and I remembered, oh my gosh, my parents got married here. Like, they had their reception here 41 years ago, and it's so beautiful. It's classic. And I started researching, and it felt so full of culture. They have a beautiful bar where they spin records and have comedy night and different things like that in the basement. And then they have a beautiful award-winning, I believe James Beard nominated or awarded chef at their restaurant called The Town upstairs. And it's just like tasteful and classic and all these beautiful things. And I felt like they were full of so much art and culture that they would maybe just get it, like understand what I'm trying to present to the community. So the first thing I did was think about, who might I know and be able to connect with at this hotel. So that's the first thing I would suggest. If you're reaching out to do a residency in your local city, whether that's at a hotel or a gallery, first think, who might I know that might know someone directly within the hotel. Often it can be really hard if you're cold emailing or calling just as a random person. You may get somewhere, especially if you keep following up, going in person, that kind of thing, but it's going to get missed a lot likely unless you have a direct connection. So I remembered a DJ who DJ'd at my shop in the past. And one of my employees at my shop was a best friend of this guy who regularly spins at Hotel Kansas City. So I reached out to him and said, hey, do you know who you get in contact with or who hires you from Hotel Kansas City? And he said, yes, I have her connection right here. Reach out to her. And so I did, and this is going to seem really unprofessional, but I still just want to say it because sometimes even just the simplest of things can get the ball rolling. He gave me her Instagram name and contact, and so my first original outreach, because I didn't have her email, nor do I think I would be able to find it, maybe if I did some major digging, but because I knew she was on Instagram, I first sent her a direct message and I said, hey, I have this friend who spins at the hotel, and he said that you are the one who books him. And I wondered, I'm an artist. I have an exhibition idea that I think could bring healing and inspiration to the city. And I would love to talk to you more about it. I have this idea to potentially teach workshops and put the art on display. And I just want to talk with you more about it and see if this is something you'd be interested in. And a couple days go by. I didn't hear anything, and I just thought, oh, this might be a no. It was a fat chance, but who knows? And she gets back to me and says, basically in so many words, like, Haley, yes, the answer is yes. Just how will we do it? Can you meet for coffee? And I was just thrilled. I was like, oh my gosh, she is into it and understands what I'm trying to present here. And something is so satisfying when you feel like you really connect with someone that maybe you haven't even met yet, but like gets what you're trying to say and understands, and is excited about it. And so we meet up. She has all these ideas, as do I, and she says, yes, like we'd absolutely love to host you as our very first artist in residence. And one thing that I want to touch on, because this is an important part of how this came through, after I messaged this person, who was in charge of the arts and culture at the hotel, and I asked for her email after she had gotten back to me and said, yes, we'd love to do that. I said, is there any way I can email you, more details, and then we can talk through when we're going to meet up. She gave me her email, and I got to work on a proposal. I'd never sent a proposal for an artist in residency before. I'd sent proposals for various works before, like commissions that I've done, but this was a totally different type of proposal that I really just made up. To be honest, I made a Canva slideshow in a way where I had about 10-15 slides. It showed the inspiration behind what that, like a mood board of how the paintings would look, including a couple that I'd already done, colors, kind of the style of my work that I would be aiming to kind of reach for. It included kind of bullet points about what I wanted to do in the residency, and what I was suggesting was hosting workshops occasionally with the hotel for the guests and locals. I wanted to display my work, my body of work with this collection, in an exhibition throughout the hotel, however that would look. And a couple other ideas that I had that I wanted to present. Then I also put other inspiration and included some things like, I will have a poetry book called Flying in the Dark, same as my painting collection, and they will launch together. I included information about that. Included information about myself, my background, how I have a painting degree, studied at Florence University of the Arts a couple times, how I was a Kansas City Parade of Hearts artist commissioned by the city, and just a couple things of my artist bio. And then I had a whole page about this specific collection, my journey to healing, all that I went through, and how I came across this specific, how I was inspired to make this specific collection. So kind of like what it would bring to the hotel and what I wanted to present. And so I sent that to her and in an email. And then when we met in person, she was so excited, so lovely, someone I'm so excited to work with in the next couple of months. Just kind of like a dream partnership host. And as we were talking, she just said, like, I'm so thrilled. I'm honestly so excited about this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work with you specifically, she said they'd received requests from artists, I guess over the years, or multiple artists who wanted to do a residency or something in a way kind of similar to this. But she said what really kind of put her over the edge and why she immediately said, yes, I'm in. Other than my original outreach where she was excited, my email that sent this proposal and laid out for her, kind of like on a platter, here's what I would love to do. She said that really put the cherry on top, like solidified this partnership and made her feel really comfortable about hosting me as an artist, as their first artist. Although they hadn't done this before, she said the other artists who've reached out kind of would say, hey, I'd like to kind of be an artist in residence, but didn't really take initiative and kind of just expected her to come up with, here's what the plan would be. And she said, it was so cool that I took the initiative to put this together and show her what this residency and collection would look like. So I would suggest to anyone who is kind of going out on a limb and doing something for the first time, maybe wanting to partner with a gallery or a hotel or any kind of space, or other business, and they haven't done anything like this before, or maybe they have, but you're presenting a new idea. I highly suggest sending a proposal. One, it makes you look much more professional. Two, it takes the weight off of their plate to plan something. Three, you're able to communicate exactly what you would like to do, because us as artists, we have these great visions, and sometimes it's kind of like cutting someone's hair. When you're going to get a haircut, you're trying to explain to the haircut artist, in a way, how you want the color to look, how you want the cut to look, and they have to be on the same page with your vision. Otherwise, it's going to look completely different. So, as an artist, it's really your job to explain how that will work, and what you are thinking. You have to communicate that. Otherwise, it might turn out totally different, and then you might regret doing this partnership. So you want to make sure that it's what you're signing up for is what you envision it to be, and you have to meet in the middle, of course. Like for me, this specific residency is gonna look a little bit different than I envisioned or that I proposed, in the sense that I like to work in private, just because I like silence in a way when I'm making art, and I have to really think through things, and sometimes I paint over something or make some big changes. And so my original outreach was asking if they would give me a room to make this work, and I would film all of this for YouTube and the behind the scenes, and then I'd be able to go to that room over and over. And like other residencies that I've seen, they would have an open studio day, so they would like leave the door open and promote to the hotel guests that on Saturdays this artist that we're hosting in residence would keep their studio open, and you could kind of come in and out. So that's what I had suggested. And then like some other residencies I've seen would go down with a drawing pad or something more I don't know, accessible to walk around with. So in a nutshell, that is how I landed my very first artist in residency opportunity with Hotel Kansas City. And I'm going to take you behind the scenes of my first day, and throughout the process, throughout the residency, I'll bring you behind the scenes as I paint live in the lobby and interact with guests and talk about how this exhibition is going to look. I'm going to be putting together custom gifts for the first 50 guests who come to my opening night. I'm going to talk about how I plan to sell the paintings, how I make my price points, the mediums I use and how they vary, the colors that I have chosen, the general themes, how I work poetry into my paintings, how I will be selling and presenting my poetry book. I've self-published two other, this is my self-published planner called the Slow Planner. It's a beautiful, really big, individual, full day planner that I made wanting to look, after years of searching for the perfect planner for a busy entrepreneur or a busy person, I made my own. And I also launched The Art of Ethical Fashion, or I self-published it, wrote it myself, designed it myself. This launched a couple of years ago, and so my poetry book, Flying in the Dark, will be my third self-published publication piece. So I'll have a coffee table book on ethical fashion, a daily planner, undated annual planner, and then now my poetry book, Flying in the Dark, which will be fun to have 3 very different publications out there in the world. And I'm going to talk about more how I made this, how I published it. Really, what I want to present on this channel is how I've healed through my art, but also how I've learned over the years through my ethical fashion company how to make a profit while still making a difference and making ethical business decisions. I just want to take you along the journey with me because I'm learning. As I mentioned, although I've done art my entire life, I'm kind of making things up along the way as I'm trying to make art more of a bigger experience in my life as I become more of a, let's say, a full-time artist. And I want to just show you guys how this looks, what it looks like in the life of an artist, and how it can be messy. There's no right or wrong. And honestly, that's the thing about art that I love the best is it's not as structured as other careers. So it's art. It is what the artist makes of it. It is what the artist presents. And so when it comes to pricing, when it comes to collaborations, just when it comes to actually making the pieces, there is no right, there is no wrong. And so I'm excited to kind of take you guys through that, get your feedback on processes that you use. I love learning from other artists. I love learning from other people, and I'm just excited to kind of continue this channel and see what we can learn from each other. I learn a lot from nature around me, and that's my practice. Learning from nature, healing from nature. I call it nature's wisest guides and what they have to teach me, like the moon and the sun, the stars, the water, the storms, like I mentioned. So I'm excited to dive more into this collection, Flying in the Dark, and just take you behind the scenes as I do this residency. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you soon.